order the November 4th meeting of the Currituck County Board of Commissioners. At 6 p.m. we had a work session where we discussed public water and supply and outlying areas. At this time, I'm going to ask Reverend Dawn Hollis from Mount Zion United Methodist Church to lead us in the invocation. Please stand.
Would you bow your heads, please? Heavenly Father, we thank you for the abundant blessings that you have poured out among each of us here, gathered here. Lord, I pray for all in attendance at this meeting tonight that you may give them wisdom, discernment, mercy, and grace as they guide and make decisions for Currituck County. May they promote peace, order, justice, and harmony in our county. Give them the confidence in their decisions and lead them in what is right. I pray for the agenda that will be set before them tonight. Give all an assurance of what would please you and what would benefit those who live and work in and around our county. Through Jesus Christ, our Lord and Savior. Amen.
Amen.
And now will you join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Dawn, I believe you're new to Currituck County.
I am.
So we want to welcome you and wish you the best.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry I had to skip out.
That's okay. Thank you. Next item is approval of agenda. Is there any changes, additions, or deletions?
No, sir.
Need a motion?
Motion for approval.
Have a motion for approval and a second. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next agenda item is public comment. We have several people signed up for public comment, and I believe Moyock Crossing, is that the same as Currituck Crossing? No, Moyock okay. So we have several people signed up for that. I'll call you when that agenda item is heard tonight for your comments. At this time we have Miss Mary Etheridge, and everyone, when you come forward, please state your name, address, and the attorney will keep the time. Thank you.
My name is Mary Etheridge, and I live at 846 Shawboro Road. My family and I have been involved in litigations with the county since 2011. At the last meeting, comments were made by two commissioners that certainly need to be answered. I realize that you want to debate the facts, but facts are facts. And the fact is, no one thought a junkyard in Shawboro was a good idea, and the courts even have said it was illegal spot zoning. At the last meeting, Chairman O'Neill asked the county attorney, did we appeal because we lost? The county attorney answered that the reason the county appealed the spot zoning was because my family had appealed to be reimbursed for attorney fees. So the county admits that they appealed the spot zoning because we were trying to recoup some of the money that it has cost my family in fighting a junkyard in Shawboro that no one thought was a good idea except 6 commissioners. And what is even worse than just fighting our appeal is that they knew when they filed their appeal to fight the special use permit that the permit had been withdrawn in February of this year. Maybe that is the reason the North Carolina legislature passed a statute to protect citizens from county actions just like these. And Mr. Petrie, the list of people that you were waving at the last meeting, they were people who attended the community meeting, not the commissioner meeting. But do you know where they live? From the junkyard site, they live 3.35 miles. 3.54 miles, and 4.10 miles, and so forth. And I'll be happy to get you a list of exactly where these so-called neighbors live. But the most important fact is, do you know how far from the site that the people who spoke in favor of the junkyard at the commissioners' meeting on December the 5th, 2011, the 3 people who spoke in favor of the junkyard lived 4.01 miles, 11.26 miles, and 1.7 miles. So, Mr. Petrie, if I can get the 10 neighbors who spoke against the junkyard in Shawboro to want one in your neighborhood, would you be willing to support that? And the fact is, my family is only asking for the county to treat us fairly. Nothing more, nothing less. Thank you.
Thank you. We have Stacy Joseph and Ms. Flora.
Hello. Oh, I'm too close. I'm Stacy Joseph. I'm the new coordinator of the Currituck Senior Centers. I live at 788 Tullis Creek Road. And I just wanted to take a few minutes to talk about the home-delivered volunteers. I want to thank the county commissioners and the county manager and the community for all that they do in supporting the home delivery program. I just want to give a reminder of how important it is that we have home-delivered meal volunteers. We cannot do the program without them. Moyoc alone, because Doris is here representing Moyoc tonight, we had 108 meals that served 5 shut-ins. And throughout the county, we had a total of 992 meals to 48 shut-ins in the month of October alone. Okay, and we could not do that if we did not have the volunteers. It would be impossible to do that. Your commitment is as little as an hour a month or subbing. I know it's hard to commit time. Even picking up the phone and calling somebody on the way home is taking time away from your day. An hour is time that people don't want to always commit. We have some wonderful volunteers, but we got to continue to spread the word out there. The home delivery volunteers sometimes are the only ones that get to see the shut-ins for that entire day. So you may be the only face that they are seeing. And not only is that important for that interaction, but you're also the eyes and ears. You let us know when something's not quite right, and we can make the phone calls we need to make sure they get the services that they need. Just please remember to contact the Currituck Senior Center if you know of anybody who wants to volunteer. Keep spreading the word. If you guys get bored and don't have enough to do, we'll be happy to make sure that you can volunteer here and there. Thank you.
Chairman, if I could make one comment. Like she said, it is a great program, and I know by being a deputy, sometimes we've had to go to the residents and assist where they couldn't get somebody to come to the door because they were elderly and so forth and so on, as well as I think we've carried some meals inside ourselves to help out. But it's a great program. And like she said, there's a lot of people that receive assistance that you are the only face that they see, and they're very thankful for it.
My name is Doris Floor, and I live at 430 Currituck Highway, Moyoc, North Carolina. Frank and I have been volunteers with the meals for the seniors, approximately maybe 2 to 3 years. And I did not know that it was so easy to be one because our meals are delivered to the Welcome Center. And that's nowhere. That starts the delivery area. And you take the containers back to the Welcome Center so they can be picked up for the next round. You would not know how much you feel for these people when you go in. That is a ray of sunshine that you bring to their day. They know exactly when I'm supposed to be there. I had one that told me one day that this is not your day, and I said, "Oh my God, how do you know?" And I looked at her calendar, and she had my name down there. And so I said, oh, me, I got to take this thing back to the Welcome Center so the right people can have it. It's just that I just knew I had it that day. We really need volunteers in the Moyoc area. It's very difficult for Stacy and her personnel to make a calendar out to fill it so that everybody doesn't have 5 or 6 days a month. And she likes to keep it smooth and easy for these people to have their meals. And I have found that I have fallen in love with a lot of people and meeting them. I've been educated by them when I go in. They ask you to do little things for them. And one day I fixed a lady's TV. And so I'll try anything once if I'm able to do it and help them. And they really appreciate it. And like I said, one day of sunshine that I can bring to these people makes me feel that I walk a little taller than 5'1". And I would like to extend to the people of Currituck to call the Senior Center, which is 232-3505, and get your name on the list. You'll have lots of fun, and you'll have a lot of people that can educate you, because most of them are seniors, and one day we'll be that place. Thank you.
Thank you. Everyone else that I have signed up is signed up for one of the other agenda items. Is there anyone else that didn't get to sign up for public comment? Hearing none, I'm going to close the public comment, and this time I'd like to ask the board to join me out front. We're going to do a special presentation to Ms. Snowden. So be careful, Ms. Snowden. Get in the middle and you'll perk them up a little bit, make them look a little better.
Pretty just cranked up a little.
Yeah. All right. Whereas Barbara B. Snowden moved to Currituck County in the 1960s to teach history in Currituck County schools, married in 1970 and made Currituck County her home.
Somebody's done the research.
Of course. And whereas Barbara taught at the high school for over 30 years, where she instilled in her students a love of history, sometimes it was hard to drill it in some of us, particularly the rich history of Currituck County. And whereas Barbara has served as president of the Currituck Historical Society for over 20 years and has received several prestigious awards due to her dedication to the preservation of historic homes, building sites, and documents. And whereas through her leadership, enthusiasm, and influence, Barbara has inspired many others to take up the task of not only learning the history of their native area, but also taking part in helping to save pieces of history. And whereas Currituck County is appreciative of Barbara's initiative in spearheading the most recent Two Flags Over Currituck event in commemoration of the 150th anniversary of the Civil War, and her attention to the details of Currituck's past in this monumental era of American history. Now therefore be it resolved that Currituck County Board of Commissioners recognizes Barbara Snowden as a valuable and beloved citizen of Currituck County, and be it further resolved that the Board of Commissioners expresses its sincere appreciation for Barbara Snowden's many years of dedication and service to the students, visitors, and citizens of Currituck County, and extends its best wishes for her future endeavors. That's from the board.
Thank you very much. I appreciate this very much from each one of you. I will say, though, that I do need to be honest about the Two Flags Over Currituck. That was an endeavor that took many, many people. It took lots of funding from different sources, including our commissioners, our Board of Tourism, our reenactors, as well as the over 70-some volunteers. I had 40-some volunteers who dealt with the school children on Friday, and we counted up, we had 30 other volunteers helping throughout the weekend. So it was a very successful weekend, but it wasn't all my doing. It was a lot of people's doing, and I'd like to acknowledge their part in making that a successful event.
Thanks again. All right, the next agenda item is the public hearings. Item A is public hearing and action on PB 06-45 Currituck Crossing request for a preliminary plat special use permit modification to permit a minor deviation from the open space standards to allow individual lot access to the Currituck Sound across primary conservation area. The subdivision is located on Idlet Road, approximately 400 feet north of Caroon Road, tax map 92D, parcel PCOA, and tax map 93, parcel 95B, Poplar Branch Township. Anyone that wishes to speak in favor of or against this particular item needs to come forward and be sworn at this time. I have two people signed up, Sam Davis and Barbara Snowden. Are there others? Ask you to place your left hand on the Bible and raise your right hand. You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
You are sworn. Mr. Woody.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As you alluded to, this is a request to, by the owner of the property and the representative to deviate from the open space standards to basically allow the individual lots adjacent to Currituck Sound to have individual piers that extend into the sound, and those piers would extend or be constructed over conservation area, which is effectively open space. The Currituck Crossing subdivision is 106 lots, and it was approved by the Board of Commissioners in December of 2006. Subsequently, a portion of the infrastructure was installed for Phase 1, and 48 of those lots were given approval. To date, 26 lots have been platted or are eligible for construction. If you've ridden by the site, you'll notice there is only one house that's actually built on the site. The remainder of the subdivision is vacant. Recently, or I think this past year, there was a request by the owner to have the preliminary plat extended to retain the vesting for an additional length of time, which was approved. And basically, on the map you can see on your screen, the light green areas are the conservation areas. It's called primary conservation area. As part of the subdivision design, those areas are set aside as open space, basically, and they're owned in common by all the property owners or the property owners association of the subdivision. So basically, the lots that adjoin those green areas, while they appear to be sound front, they're actually adjacent to a strip of open space that is located between their individually owned lot and the Currituck Sound. Now, you can see on the map there are portions of the conservation area that are quite wide and quite significant, and of course there are other portions of the conservation area adjacent to lots where it's probably 2 or 3 feet wide and due to erosion may not even be there anymore. The subdivision also provides access to the sound for all the other lot owners or prospective lot owners that are not adjacent to this primary conservation area. And you can see on the map the areas that are light blue. The area in the center is a commonly owned pier. Then the area on the lower portion of the map, the south side of the map in blue, would be a future open space. It would provide a beach or just kind of common recreation area adjacent to the sound. And generally, what the issue is tonight is the open space or the common area, the light green, is when it's set aside, that is designated as an area for use and enjoyment of all the residents of the subdivision. It's owned in common, and it's for everybody's benefit. When this subdivision was approved back in 2006, there was a lot of discussion over whether they're basically wetlands, whether the wetlands that are put in conservation area, whether that could be left out of common area and placed on individual lots, or whether that should become commonly owned area. The decision at that time in 2006 was to require those wetland areas become conservation areas, and hence you see the light green areas on the map that are located between the lots and the sound. In researching this and I wasn't here in 2006, but in researching this, the staff was unable to determine if there was the discussion centered around whether or not those wetlands could be located on individual lots or be in common area, but there was no discussion of whether the individual lot owners would be able to construct piers over the conservation area to gain access to the sound. So the approval really remained silent on that. Mr. Davis, representing the owner of the property, approached the county and asked if that was a possibility to allow those individual lots to get access, and we looked at the ordinance, and the ordinance says no, it's not. Common area can't be used for individual use. Mr. Davis asked if there was any options or any way to have consideration for that. The old ordinance did provide the ability to modify the open space standard, provided this Board of Commissioners who issued the permit makes 2 findings and approves it. So they're here tonight before you to request the ability for these lots that are adjoining the Currituck Sound to gain access for individual piers to the Currituck Sound across the open space. Real quickly, in the past, there have been instances where there are lots that adjoin creeks or streams where there are significant amounts of open space and the board has not allowed individual pier access to the body of water. There's been instances on the beach in the past where piers have been allowed, but they've been required that 2 lot owners share 1 pier, which that can be problematic at times, having 1 pier for 2 lot owners. And there's been times when this board has allowed individual lots to access the sound going over common space. So there's really no precedent for how that's been handled. I would say in this particular case, you should look at it on the individual property and weigh it on its own merits. The 2 findings you have to make tonight are, 1, that if you do allow these individual lots to cross the open space and access the sound with a pier, that the objectives underlying the standards of the ordinance can be met without strict adherence to them. That means, can you allow this and not have any meaningful or detrimental impacts? And the other finding you have to make is that the tract is unusual enough or that it's peculiar enough that it warrants this type of special consideration. So you've got to look at this and gauge whether the individual lots, based on the width and proximity of that open space, warrant their ability to cross and have individual piers to the sound. Hopefully that makes sense. The applicant's here as well to provide a presentation, and I can answer any questions you have.
How many lots are on the sound?
It was 21, I believe. 22, I believe. I just counted again, so yeah.
If I may, is the use of that common area, it's really not open to the public since it would be private property surrounding it. Is that true?
Yeah, this open space is somewhat unique in the sense of that it's more difficult to get to for the rest of the residents or anybody else for that matter. So it's a little more isolated than open space typically is.
With the loss of this, or is there some means by which they could expand the open space to take into consideration, the loss of that to the development as a whole? Has that been considered?
It has, and the owner has said they're willing to offset the loss of this through other areas. So, and actually, as a matter of fact, I think this subdivision already provides open space above and beyond the minimum requirements.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
2 questions. I remember back in the early or mid-2000s, it was a conscious effort to do just exactly what you said, cut down on the number of piers by sharing and doing different things, having a common pier for a different area. Whatever the reason was, I don't remember, but I do recall that. Second thing, from my perspective, it's open space, so it's owned by everyone. You put a pier there, it's a private pier. Someone gets on that pier and gets hurt, who's liable? Who's responsible?
That would be the, more than likely, the owner of the pier.
I don't know, I'm asking. Well, yeah.
I would
mean,
think
from a homeowners association point of view, they certainly would, I wouldn't think. I mean, if I was in it, I wouldn't want to assume liability for someone else's personal property. That's my point.
I would think in the covenants, the developer would, since they're making an exception to allow this, they would have to probably specify that or outline in their covenants in terms of how the property is used.
If I may, then the piers themselves would not be an extension of the lots? Maybe we can wait until we talk to the developer's representatives, but it doesn't make sense to me that you would put piers in there connected to, a lot that would not belong to the owner. Is this an extension of their lots per se?
I think it's a use of their riparian rights. I don't know that it's necessarily an extension of their lot per se, but That's a good question. I'm not sure I know the answer to that, Mr. Martin, exactly.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Woody, couldn't the developer, since he's already over and above the open space requirement, could he not change it around and deed that property to the individual property owners that abut that open space area?
Yeah,
Clean it
well,
up completely?
the board could consider that as part of a modification. That was part of the original request in 2006, was to do just that. Now, the ordinance requires that when you when you design a subdivision, you take all the wetlands initially and you place those in open space. That's the first step in designing a subdivision. So to allow that would have to require a modification from the Board of Commissioners.
It would just make it clean liability-wise from my perspective. Whatever.
Mr. Chairman, you mentioned erosion a while ago. I'm assuming this is not bulkheaded?
I don't think all of it's bulkheaded, no. Is that correct, Mr. Davis?
It's mostly bulkheaded.
Okay, yeah.
Where I'm going with this is if this is open space, if a person put in a pier, if it's not bulkheaded, make a requirement that it is bulkheaded to protect from encroachment on their lot. I mean, if this is a wetland, and if we're going through what we're doing over Whalehead, we're going to lose it. So all I'm saying is, if you put a requirement in for a pier that it's got to be bulkheaded, if it's not, that's.
I doubt you can get a permit to bulkhead where the wetlands are. That's why they're not bulkheaded,
And then
because the
who's gonna put in
bulkhead
for the
destroys the wetlands. So it's just,
Put in for the permit,
so that would be a
individual owner.
deterrent to getting a bulkhead, is the fact that it is wetlands. Anyone else have any other questions, Mr. Woody? Yes.
A follow-up question. So if you can't bulkhead a wetland, is it a different rule that says that you can put a pier over a wetland?
That's, CAMA makes that decision.
You can.
So whatever
you
we
can
approve, if we
construct-
approve or disapprove tonight, if this were to be approved, they would still have to go to CAMA.
Yes,
Correct.
but you can construct piers over wetlands. That is permittable through CAMA.
We had a similar situation to this over on the Outer Banks with Corolla Bay, and the board made an adjustment to that and allowed them to build piers over the open space, so that at the time, the planning director wanted to require a sharing of piers, which, I love my neighbor, but when I want to go on my pier and they've got it maxed out with their family reunion, then, that doesn't make a lot of sense. So having individual piers is what we did on the Outer Banks on the sound side. Very similar situation as this, and it's worked fine as far as I know. So, anyone else?
One more. Approximately how far these piers have to extend out into the water to get to, I won't say navigable water, but I mean.
Mile.
Okay.
I don't know the answer to
That's what I was
that.
afraid of.
It's shallow water.
I don't know the answer to
Very
that.
much, sand shoals.
Yeah. All right, with that, I'm going to open the public hearing. The first person we have signed up is Miss Barbara Snowden.
My name is Barbara Snowden, and I live at 154 Courthouse Road. And I should have taken my plaque and hid it in the car before I came up here, because I'm going to be in my pesky mood tonight for just a few minutes. Whenever Currituck Crossing comes up, I need to remind you that that is the site on the National Register of the bomb site, which was the first National Register site given for Indian artifacts in the nation. Now, we realize that most of this site has washed away, and I have to give the developers credit. They did a very good archaeological study of the area. But part of the reason that these wetlands were left as common open spaces is because out in that area was where the ossuaries were originally that were washed away, and then the ones that were excavated by East Carolina. So I just would like to ask Mr. Davis, and when you're considering that, we need to be aware of the fact that this is the bomb site. It is a National Register archaeological site for the nation. And these grounds, especially where the water hits the land, are very, very, I don't know what word I want to use, very sensitive would be a good word of saying it. I'm not opposing what the homeowners want to do, but I just want to make sure that the bomb site, or if perchance anything is left of that Indian village that was there over 400 years ago, that it is protected.
And I have a question of staff. Is that particular site mapped out to where it could be avoided by the piers?
We have there's an archaeological study that was done. I haven't reviewed that, so I don't know the answer to your question exactly, but I would have to assume and imagine it was.
Well, they did do an
They
extensive
did,
study.
and that's why I say it must be. I'd have to pull the information and go through it, but I can provide that to the developers.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, but I'm assuming that study was done before this Currituck crossing was approved.
Yes.
It was.
Well, it was along in the same time frame when it was all going on.
I know, but what I'm saying is a prior board approved this with considering Mrs. Snowden's issues. It was approved.
I don't remember where the.
Actually,
what come
this
first.
subdivision
Chicken
went
or
through a elongated process before it was approved
Yeah,
because of the archaeological survey and study.
sure did. It was controversial.
Yeah, it took a while before it actually got approved.
But it was approved.
It was approved. And at the time, one of the things that they had asked was for the ability to be able to put the piers across there, and I don't know why that was not a part of the approval at that time, because it was discussed. It was I think it was right in December. I had just left the board.
Yeah.
And it was approved that same next meeting, so, but all that stuff was thoroughly discussed and vetted. All right, next, Sam Davis.
I'm Sam Davis III, 508 Continental Drive, Elizabeth City, representing Sam Davis and Associates Realty, and the broker for the Bank of Hampton Roads, who now currently owns the property. I also have with me tonight Eric Schiefen, the buyer's agent for Casey Farmer and Jim Deal of Premier Land Development, potential buyers for the property. Also, two representatives of Quibel and Associates who are going to speak later. Mr. Chairman, Mr. Vice Chairman, fellow commissioners and staff. First, let me say, having walked a mile in your shoes, I thank you for your service to your community, and I realize what an important job you have and how valuable your time is, so I will make my remarks as brief as possible. I've tried to provide you with enough information in the packet or the letter that I sent to Mr. Woody, and so that you could make an informed decision, and it would be easy. I also provided Mr. Woody with some pictures. Do you happen to have those pictures, Mr. Woody, that we could show?
I did not receive the pictures.
Okay, well, sorry, I emailed some pictures.
believe
I
you.
thought, I'm sorry. To show you exactly what has eroded, so you would be aware of exactly what's going on. First, let me say, your county and you should be very proud of your staff, having met with County Manager Scanlon, County Attorney McCree, and County Planner Woody. It's very obvious how talented they are, but their willingness and understanding of our problem with this subdivision and how it relates to your county is truly a breath of fresh air. We, and I say that collectively with the staff, myself, the owners, and the potential developers, are trying to revitalize a stalled, foreclosed subdivision that the value will be greatly diminished if we can't sell the riparian rights of the sign front lot owners, which Currituck County, past and present, have been so proud of, and the very reason why people settled here when our country was founded. This makes it very clear the need for your action. We are not eroding your conservation efforts. However, your conservation areas are severely eroding. And as evidenced by my pictures, which I thought you would have, it's gone in some areas. Some of this green that you see is not even there now. I'm not going to take your time going through my whole letter to give you all the points that I've tried to make that would make you vote positively on this. But as staff has already painted you a definitive reason for ruling positively on our request. However, I would be glad to answer any questions, and it sounds like you have some very good questions, each of you that have already made your points, along with Ms. Snowden. Commissioners, I thank you for your time, your service, and your understanding. We, your staff, my buyers, the Bank of Hampton Roads, and myself feel we meet your two criteria that have been set forth for this minor deviation of permit modification, and would appreciate your consideration and your yes vote tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I'll answer any questions.
Do you have any questions? Yes, sir.
Somebody help me understand how a pier is going to stop erosion.
A pier is not going to stop erosion.
That's what I thought. And so I think what you're trying to do is, my main concern is preserving the area.
Yes, sir.
If I were buying a lot, I don't want to be losing my lot, first the conservation area, then the lot. So
Well,
maybe your engineers have an idea or whatever.
No, actually the bulkhead is behind the conservation area. There is the subdivision, the bulkhead, the conservation area, and the same. And all we're asking for is a deviation to allow piers to be built across that conservation area. We're not trying to take away the
but you were talking
conservation.
about erosion, that some of this common area has eroded.
It's already eroded.
I know, but I'm trying to stop that erosion. That's a concern I've got, but what I'm saying is, if it's bulkheaded, how are we losing? In other words, it's bulkheaded behind gotcha, okay.
Yes, sir.
I'm slow, I'll get there.
I don't think you're slow, sir, but you're
No,
you're absolutely right, and it is eroding, and God's helping us with that, so I don't think we can stop that.
Okay, I got you. Takes me a while.
Yes, sir.
So in essence, what you're saying, the marsh is eroding.
Yes, sir.
Okay, the bulkhead was established and put in behind the marsh?
Yes, sir.
Between the residential lots?
Yes, sir, and I'm sure that was done in accordance with CAMA.
I've never seen it before, but anyhow, I'm not disputing it, but I've certainly never seen that before.
I believe, according to your letter, the easements are actually part of the homeowners association. Then the homeowners association would actually have to allow the easements for the piers to be built. So even if we approve it tonight, it does not mean it's going to happen. It still takes the vote of the homeowners association to grant that easement to that property owner, correct?
Well, the homeowners association will own the conservation area in
Right.
accordance to what it was set up with, and you are correct, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
So the homeowners association will have to give a vote of approval to allow.
Well, I think CAMA will probably, it's riparian rights. In North Carolina, we have anyone that owns something that's adjacent to the water, you have riparian rights to build a pier to go out as far as you want to go. And in answer to one of your questions, I don't remember which asked it earlier, but how far you have to go, some people will not even build piers. There's some folks that don't build piers, and then there's some people that build piers for large boats that would, like the chairman said, have to go out a long way. But there already is a common pier also there that has a day dock, and it's pretty shallow at the end of that day dock, and it's about 120 feet out.
Walked every step of that many times. That's a boy.
Beautiful place, isn't it?
Soft crabbing down there.
Many times.
Okay. Anyone have any? Yes, sir.
One question. The homeowners association that's now constituted are how many members?
One.
One.
And I'm not sure. See, the homeowners association really will be formed and is part of the covenants. And actually, all of those lots belong to the homeowners association, which now would be owned by the Bank of Hampton Roads. And that's established as you buy your lot. That's established as you buy your
In
lot.
essence, the Bank of Hampton
That's
Roads
right.
is the
That's
homeowners
right.
association
That's-
as we speak.
That's the point
So
I
they
was
can
making.
they can give the right to do that if they so desire. I guess that's where we're getting to.
That is correct.
That was my point.
But all of this is now, you have to keep in mind, all of this is regulated by CAMA. We're not doing anything that supposedly, I suppose you call a state agency a higher regulatory board, but
I know.
I don't know.
Well, and
They'll let you know if you do, don't worry.
That's right.
That's correct.
Yeah, well, just
so
as
the Corps don't have to get in on it.
Just as a comment, I live on the water, and I have a pier off of my property, and I have, so I'm familiar with the CAMA regulations and what it entails, and they're pretty, they're pretty tight on their restrictions. I've also been the recipient of 2 or 3 other piers that I don't quite know where they came from after some of these storms we have that end up in my yard, but in any event, CAMA's, I'm comfortable with how they would look at it.
All right, I had a couple others. Did y'all want to speak?
Thank you, Commissioners, and Mr. Chairman, Mr. Vice Chairman, staff.
Yes, sir. Please come and give your name and who you're representing, please.
Good evening. I'm Brian Rubino with Quibel and Associates, and the reason I just wanted to add a couple things a bit related to the CAMA rules. I spoke to a CAMA representative in Elizabeth City about it. I wanted to both learn a little bit about the CAMA permit history on this site and also about what can be permitted in the future related to piers. I learned with the bulkhead that's out there, they weren't able to put that bulkhead out in front of the wetlands or on the sound side of the wetlands because that would have required fill of what they consider coastal wetlands for the backfill and the dead men and the tiebacks. So that's why the bulkhead that is out there is on the wetland upland boundary, which is why it's not out in the water. The only way they could do a bulkhead out in the water would be a slotted wall, so a vertical breakwater of sorts where water could pass through. So in addition to that, I spoke to the CAM representative about piers, and they said there was one of 2 ways that they would be able to issue general permits for the future owners of these various lots. The one would be if each one of the lot owners had an easement going over the conservation area to the water's edge. They could issue a CAMA permit in that way. The other, which would seem to be preferable to CAMA, would be if the lot lines were extended all the way to the water's edge. It would make it a little bit cleaner for them. But either one of those ways, they would be able to issue general permits for whoever applied for them, the future owners.
Yeah, it would. So, okay, let me, just a couple simple questions, just clear something up in my mind. The bulkheading where it's at now, I understand exactly what you're saying. I mean, when you have shorelines that are completely messed up, yeah, that's exactly right. That's what they will do to keep it straight, to keep from having to build a contour. But, so, this straight bulkhead line, is that the property line, or is the property line still back behind the bulkhead?
No, that's essentially where the property line is, and that is the case for maybe half of these lots. The other half doesn't have bulkhead.
Got it. And also, so in essence, there's no effort will be put out to save what is washing away. I mean, because you're not going to go out there and bulkhead in front of it where it wasn't bulkheaded that way before. So that's written off and letting the water come into where the bulkhead is at.
That's right. That's being washed away.
I just want to get it clear.
All right, any questions?
You're saying they can take the property line straight out through the conservation area, and that would address the thing about the insurance and who's responsible and who does what, Mr. Martin and Mr. Abbott?
I think that would solve the problem.
And I think Mr. Woody said there was sufficient open space to allow that to happen. Is that correct?
I believe there is, yes, sir. Now, if they do that, they'll have to, the lots that aren't platted yet, it's probably simple enough, but the lots that are already platted, they'll have to somehow replat those lots to do that. So there is some steps they would have to take if the board authorizes that.
But it cleans it up, makes it simple.
It can be done. But the future phases that aren't platted, which is basically south of the common pier, they could just, whenever they plat those, they can clean it up.
Okay. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
The area that's not bulkheaded now, does the developer have a plan to bulkhead that, to protect that area? If he could get the permits.
Yeah, well, I'm not sure if they have plans to put that bulkhead in now, but if they did, it would have to be on that, on that upland edge. And I would think, typically if someone buys a lot like that, they're going to want to bulkhead it.
Okay.
The future owner. I don't believe that the bulkhead will go in now, but I think likelihood is high that it would happen.
All right, anyone else? Hearing none, we'll close the public hearing and ask the board for a motion.
Did staff give a recommendation?
Staff recommended approval.
Okay, that's what I thought. Does staff approve all three of these objectives or these bullet points plus the optional motion?
Yeah, I think the board needs to make the two findings that they're required to make, which I think you can make those based on the testimony. I believe that's up to you. And then once you've done that, I think you've got to then clearly specify that you're allowing individual lots to have piers to the Currituck Sound. So that then becomes a condition of this permit, so 5 years from now, we're not having this same discussion again.
Does that accomplish what you're looking to do? Okay. Somebody needs to make the motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make the motion to move to approve minor deviation for PB 06-45 with the following findings. The objectives of the required conservation area is met because the area remains protected from further development. Conservation area configuration is unique because it is narrow in width, eroding, and located between individual lots in the Currituck Sound. Therefore, the individual sound side lots may construct piers across conservation areas to allow private water access to the Currituck Sound.
I have a motion.
I'll second that motion.
A second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item B, public hearing and action, PB 1321, Brumsey Ridge, Phase 1. Request approval of the preliminary plat use permit for a 4-lot residential subdivision located in Moyock on the north side of Brumsey Road, approximately a quarter mile from the intersection with Tulls Creek Road, tax map 49, parcel 82A, Moyock Township. And yes, anyone that wishes to speak on this issue needs to come forward and be sworn at this time. Swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a request for a preliminary plat special use permit. What you'll see tonight is a 4-lot subdivision. However, the broader plan is for this subdivision to be an 8-lot subdivision. The reason the other 4 lots are not before you at this time is they have not gotten septic approval yet. This property is located in Moyock off Brumsey Road. You can see the parcel identified on the aerial photograph. Currently zoned single-family mainland, and it is designated as limited service in the land use plan. I'll note that across the street you have full service designation. And basically what you have is a site that's 11.5 acres. Phase 1 has 4 residential lots. Phase 2 would have an additional 4 residential lots. Comes out to a density of about 0.35 units per acre. This area proposes or is providing 3.62 acres of open space, and the open space is to the rear of the property, generally where you see some of the woodlands in one corner, and there's still some agricultural areas as well that are in open space. Development's proposed to have county water and on-site septic system, as I mentioned earlier. Right now, 4 of the lots are moving forward, and the other 4 need to obtain septic approval before coming back to you. As a preliminary plat special use permit, you have to make 4 findings to issue the use permit. Staff has included those in your case analysis, and we've made suggested findings. Staff thinks this subdivision can meet all those criteria for use permit issuance. The TRC, the Technical Review Committee, reviewed this request, and they do recommend approval with conditions. There's 3 conditions in the TRC recommendation, one relating to the establishment of the farmland buffer. That's a requirement that you provide buffering to adjoining lands that may be under cultivation. The other condition is that the open space be accessible to all the residents of the subdivision, which is common, although we just did something differently kind of on the last subdivision request. But the point is that open space is accessible. And then finally, that any impacts to wetlands or waters will require a review. I don't know that there will be impacts to wetlands, but if there is. And then the planning board heard this case at their October meeting, and they recommended approval with the staff recommendations. And I'll be happy to answer any questions you have.
Anyone have any questions of Mr. Woody? Hearing, yes, sir.
Is this density consistent with where you live?
I'm 150 yards from it.
I know, I'm talking about the density.
Oh, the density? Yeah, definitely.
Yes.
It's consistent.
Okay.
You're basically looking at 1 acre lots. But when you add in the open space, the density actually ends up being much less than 1 unit per acre.
Which my residence, I think, is about 90% of an acre.
All right, I'm going to open the public hearing. Mr. Bissell, do you have anything to add?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The only thing that I'm going to add is that
Please tell us who you are.
I'm Mark Bissell with Bissell Professional Group from Kitty Hawk. And the one thing that I'll add is that the Health Department has now approved the other 4 lots in the back, but just not in time to get on the agenda for this hearing with some modifications to that layout that you have before you. But the other 4 lots have been approved now. I'd be glad to answer any questions.
Anyone have any questions of Mr. Bissell? Hearing none, I'm going to close the public hearing and ask the board for a motion.
Move for approval.
I have a motion for approval.
Second that motion.
Was staff's findings, I assume?
Yes.
I have a motion, a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. It's probably the easiest you've ever gotten out of here.
I would agree with that.
You just got an honest face. That's
Yeah. All right, item C, public hearing and action, PB 13-25, G's Group, request an amendment of the Unified Development Ordinance, Chapter 6, Section 6.2.1.c, street design standards to reduce the minimum street intersection spacing for planned developments and conservation subdivisions in the full-service area. Mr. Woody.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Real quickly, this is agenda item C. There is, too, an agenda item D, which is for the same party. This first agenda item is a text amendment, and as the board knows, text amendments apply countywide in scope. So the text amendment was initiated by the subdivider of property, but just please consider that when you vote to approve or deny this, you're looking at it from a countywide perspective. In this particular case, if the text amendment is approved, you'll be able to move forward with the public hearing item, which is next on your agenda, which is for the actual subdivision. If the text amendment is not approved, you will not be able to hear the next agenda item because the subdivision will require a redesign. The subdivision has basically been designed to meet the text amendment before you. So I just wanted to make that clear moving forward in terms of what we're discussing in the comments. The text amendment itself is to the UDO, and you can see a diagram of the proposed subdivision. And effectively, our Unified Development Ordinance currently provides that intersections shall be spaced 400 feet apart from one another. So you'll have a 400-foot spacing requirement between intersections. What this text amendment does is it proposes that for planned unit developments and for conservation subdivisions and full service areas, so that's growth areas, that the intersection spacing be reduced to 200 feet. So basically in these denser development patterns, you would have an intersection spacing that would be 200 feet, whereas traditionally in Currituck, particularly for our 1 acre lots and less dense development patterns, you've kind of had that 400-foot spacing requirement. And what I would say is just kind of giving the board some background on that. I'm sure the applicants and other parties will also speak to this, but I don't think from a public safety standpoint that a 200-foot intersection spacing is any less safe than 400 feet. I think it's more of an issue of just kind of the form of development. When you see these tighter intersections, you're going to see that in more of a suburban or even some urban context where you have more of a block pattern of streets. Whereas, and of course you have smaller lots with that. Now, where you see the larger intersection spacing, the 400-foot, is going to obviously be in more of a rural setting where you have larger lots, and thereby you can have larger intersection spacing. So it's really, as much as it is, it's really as much as it is anything, an issue of form of development. the types of development you have. So again, I don't think from staff's perspective we see any public safety issues with the text amendment as proposed. In addition, though, to the language, this is a precautionary note, and this came up at the planning board. We've suggested that if this is approved, if the county does allow smaller intersection spacing for some types of development, that we require that NCDOT provide a certification that the smaller spacing does not create a public safety hazard. And the planning board actually went kind of another step forward and said NCDOT or a licensed traffic engineer. So there would be a check and a balance that if we do have these small intersection spacings, that it is not a safety issue. So with that, based on TRC's review, from a technical standpoint, we recommend approval of this text amendment based on its consistency with the land use plan and the fact it doesn't create public safety issues. Now, the applicant, in support of and I want to go through this and I'll let them elaborate, but this you can see is the layout of the subdivision with less than 400-foot intersection spacing. Now, I'll note this is an example, but this could be any subdivision in Currituck County that's a conservation subdivision or planned development. This would be an exhibit if you maintain on this particular property the 400-foot spacing between intersections. And some of the differences you can see is one is you only have one loop road instead of two. You can see there's two loops, and the spacing pushes those further apart, so you end up having a cul-de-sac. And the other difference I would note on this particular example is it also pushes some of the lots to have frontage on Shingle Landing Drive, whereas the other example did not have the lots with curb cuts on Shingle Landing Drive. So those are just two exhibits. Again, this applies countywide, so take those for what they are, which is just an illustrative example on this particular property. And with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions the board has.
Mr. Woody, what's the space in between the two? That's open space?
It's open space. That's right. This has kind of a unique configuration of wetlands on the property.
And then the two things in the back are ponds?
Ponds, yep, stormwater ponds. And then behind the ponds, to the rear of that, you have Shingle Landing Creek.
Thank you.
Mr. Woody, how many other developments would this affect if we change this amendment to the ordinance?
It wouldn't affect any today, but it would be an option that new development applications could then pursue. But again, it's got to be a conservation subdivision in a full service area, which are preferred growth areas for the county, or it's got to be a planned development. Now, I'll note that we have planned developments on the Outer Banks that are developed with intersection spacing that's less than 400 feet. So this does exist in Currituck County and other subdivisions already.
Anyone else? Well, go ahead.
If we consider other subdivisions down the road, was that taken into consideration for safety?
It was.
Right now, my question is, it might not be a problem now, but down the road, could it be a problem?
It was, and we had the staff level. We had discussion of connecting this to a speed limit. We didn't end up doing that because we felt we could manage it through the TRC process and DOT. But obviously, if you have residential streets where the speed limit's 25 or 35 miles per hour, I don't think the spacing is going to be an issue. If you had 200-foot intersection spacing where you had speed limits of 45 or 55, clearly that's a safety issue. So I think one component is keeping the speed limits low and making sure this is residential streets.
But you said if we pass this text amendment, it applies countywide.
It does. So when a new subdivision came in, if they move forward under this reduced spacing, they would have to, one, bring it before you for approval, and two is they would have to have a certification from NCDOT stating it doesn't create a public safety issue.
I know, but my concern is when you go to a rural area and you have these guidelines and the speed limit is 45 or 55 instead of 25, then we got an issue.
It could be on a higher speed limit. That's correct.
Mr. Wooding, what is and I know we're talking about a text amendment now, we're not talking about the subdivision. What is the density of this proposal?
It ends up being about 90 lots, which I believe is about 2 units per acre.
And what is Shingle Landing next to it developed as? Density?
Shingle Landing is probably less than 1 unit per acre. Actually, I know it's less than 1 unit per acre.
But this already has the zoning required to do what they're doing, correct?
It does. It's on single-family mainland, and they're pursuing the conservation subdivision option. But I want to say what really makes them able to achieve the higher density isn't the zoning per se, it's the ability to connect to centralized sewer. I mean, to achieve densities of 2 or 3 units per acre, and even to get the lot small enough to have these 200-foot intersection spacing, you almost have to have centralized sewer to do that.
Well, let me read a sentence out of your staff's finding. The reduced intersection spacing is typically found in urban developments where small lots are connected to public wastewater. The people I talk to in Moyock, Coinjock, Grandy, whatever, don't want urban development. They want rural development. They want to keep the open spaces and not anything on staff. I'm just saying that people we talk to, or I talk to, do not want to urbanize Moyock just because we have wastewater. And I realize that wastewater is an inducement to density, but I can tell you the Board of Commissioners did not construct the wastewater system to induce higher densities in Moyock or anywhere else. So that's what I have to say.
I'd like to make a comment, if I could. Also, it bothers me that when you look at 200 feet, and then you have an intersection, that's not a whole lot of room to be driving where you're going to have to come to a stop. And it is innately a problem here in Currituck, I mean, because we're mostly rural. And you can put a sign up that says 25 or 35, but if people are accustomed to driving 45 and 55, that's what they're going to do on the streets. And hey, I live in a subdivision, and we have that problem. Thank goodness we don't have cuts every 200 feet. And I think you can say, as a safety issue, we can get a traffic engineer to come in and certify something, but it doesn't set well with me in looking at it. Not in 200 feet. That's 4 lots. If you got 100-foot frontage.
I'd like to comment too, as probably the only person in this room with a radar certification. I know a public safety issue in the county. We're 4 highway patrolmen short from the state. Not many people know that. Then that falls on your deputies, who are doing other jobs. Tolls Bay, you can call dispatch and ask how many complaints they get, where that's a 35 residential zone where they're doing 45 and 55. Puddin Ridge, like I said, it's a major safety issue where, like like Chairman Martin was saying, I totally agree with you.
All right, anyone else? We do have a public hearing now. I had a whole lot of people signed up for the Moyock crossing, and I had one person that said G group, and that was Joe Drago. Do you want to speak to this, or are you waiting for the next one?
Well, I was waiting for the next one, but seeing that the vote on this says whether we will have the next one or not, I'm not sure what to do.
Well, if you comment on this, we're talking strictly about this amendment. We're not talking about the next agenda item. It is strictly on this proposed amendment because it's a countywide amendment. So.
And I cannot speak on both because I've only signed up for this one.
No, you can speak on both of them. I'm just saying that if you speak now, it's about the amendment. It's not about G's group. It's not about the subdivision. It's the amendment.
Okay, then I'd like to speak on that. And first,
Tell everybody who you are.
I'm Joe Drago, and I live at 225 Moyock Landing Drive. I also own a home at 100 Swan Drive, so I'm a double paying tax owner. And I want to thank you for your time, and I want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. And I think sometimes we don't do that. And I'd like to talk, I guess I'd like to say, is this soft diplomacy? And then we're going to end up with hard reality. I moved to North Carolina twice. First time, and I had to leave because of my parents. Had to go back to Virginia and take care of them. Well, I'm back again and here to stay. And I care about our future and what happens. I also am a realtor for William E. Wood. And sure, I like to sell lots and home packages, but I know why people move to North Carolina, because they like our tax bracket, and they also like the style and integrity. We're not densed up, and we don't have the issues that some of the other cities do that are just over the line from where we are. And I think that if we allow this density to go in, that we're setting ourselves up for a lot of other issues. And this is not, I do not think, where I want to see us in 10 years. And I don't think the county and the commissioners do either.
Thank you. Now I have Jason Mazzell. Are you talking, do you want to speak on behalf of the text amendment, or do you want to speak both? Okay.
Jason Mazzell with I'm in Arobi, Camden, representing G's Group as the consultant. Mr. Chairman, board members, thank you for having us here this evening. I do want to point out just a couple of quick things about specific to our development, but it also kind of brings back around the point of the text amendment. One of the things in talking with staff, it's really been looking at this for about a year now, and the conservation subdivision with limited service, trying to look at condensing the footprint of development and trying to look at putting the lots into these loop roads so that we get driveways off of main roads. One of the issues with our particular project was connectivity to Moyock Landing Drive and Shingle Landing subdivision, and trying, when we looked at the development, trying to keep driveways off that connector road, giving Shingle Landing an outlet to the south to get to a stoplight, and that, in doing so, we wanted to try to limit driveway connections on that road. And that's really what we're talking about is those driveway connections. Our street connections are the ones that are less than 400 feet. We don't have any other driveways on that stretch. The other exhibit that we provided that would show 400 foot between intersections would promote driveways to try to get the lots that the developer needs to make this project work. So that, in a sense, drives those driveways back on there. So you wind up probably with a worse problem in having more driveways on those main roads as opposed to the interior roads that are going to be at a lower speed limit, more regulated, little easier to manipulate. In looking at design standards with the Department of Transportation, we looked at what their influence of intersections was. And we actually looked at their rural table, not their urban table, but their rural table, because it would be more restrictive. Rural development at 35 miles per hour, the area of influence of the intersection, per their guidelines, is 230 feet. Okay, so looking at that, have you got that diagram, Ben? Okay. So trying to keep that overall distance between the intersections to accommodate for that area of influence was part of our evaluation of the text amendment. We have looked at this with DOT. We actually went to them October last year with this layout, and this is actually less lots now than what we presented to them, and they showed no concerns and documented no concerns over that. Be that as it may, that's really the nuts and bolts of the text amendment. I'll be more than happy to answer any questions that you guys have in regards to the text amendment.
You do understand this applies countywide, not just to your...
I do, and I want to point out that it's countywide just for conservation subdivisions in full service, and that's probably the key, because if you don't have full service, you're most likely not going to have smaller lots, and you're not going to be able to achieve a distance less than 400 feet. So that's why we specifically wrote it to the full service.
All right. Anyone have questions?
I have one. I noticed in the other subdivision where you actually had a circle with the 400 feet there, you are showing houses on the other side of the street.
Yes, sir.
So if you go with the 200 feet, that street still has that land there. It didn't go away.
No, sir.
And in the future, you could put houses there anyway.
No, sir.
You could not.
We're dedicating that
That's
as
part
open
of your
space.
open area. Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
What's the total acreage of that property?
It's what, 50, 56, 58 acres?
It's 26 of building area with 92 home sites proposed.
58 total acres.
The total acreage is 58.16 acres.
And how much open space?
It would have 23.67 acres of open space.
Should be
With-
putting 90 lots on about 26 acres.
Half-acre lots.
Yeah.
It's about 0.15 if you do the math. Less than a quarter of an acre.
All right. So, anyone have any further questions?
I have one for Mr. Woody. Maybe I'm thick tonight. Well, I'm thick all the time, but maybe a little more thicker. You got, as we're looking at it, two separate housing areas. Okay, you've got a circle that goes through, ties into the main, or not the main road, but the extending road that goes all the way through. So you got 1, 2, 3, 4 sections there that tie into one. Then where does the other road go? The main road that comes out of the area? Where does that go into?
That connecting road to the north, it will connect into the Shingle Landing subdivision into Moyoka Landing Drive.
Okay, got
and
it.
to the south, it connects to Shingle Landing Drive, which is the road that goes over the old bridge there in Moyoka into the village.
So you got two outlets coming out of there.
You do, and I will say it does give a second outlet to the Shingle Landing subdivision, which currently has, the one outlet that goes over the railroad crossing. So the connectivity is we're off the text amendment scope, but the connectivity this provides is a positive for the area
Okay.
on the subdivision.
Okay, now looking at the other one, Mr. Woody, looking at the other one, okay, give me the same synopsis on that.
It's the
We
same.
have three going into one, and where do those go?
Same place, one north to the Shingle Landing subdivision and south to Shingle Landing Drive.
Thank you.
So whether we decide this one way or the other, you're still going to go to Shingle Landing Drive and Shingle Landing, they're still going to have the same exits.
Yes.
So the question is, do we have three connections into one road or four connections into one road? To simplify.
As it applies to this particular subdivision, that's basically correct.
How many? How far down Shingle Landing Road where the old bridge is? Because Monday through Friday in school times, you're looking at probably a 20-minute wait to get down that road from Moyoka Elementary if somebody drops their kid off from school.
Well, doesn't this adjoin the creek?
Yes.
It does.
It does.
So it's right down by the bridge, basically.
Right at it.
Mr. Woody? Okay, applies to this subdivision. As far as density, is density already locked in? I mean, what he wants to do, I mean, is that a lock-in already?
Well, yeah, in the full service areas in our land use plan, we allow densities up to 3 units per acre. So by having centralized sewer and clustering the lots down, they're able to be within their approved density. That's correct.
I'm just trying to cut through the chase and get what we're trying to deal with. That's all.
Yeah, density in terms of the ordinance and the land use plan is not an issue.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
I want to make sure that I understand this. This is a countywide, this text amendment applies countywide, right?
That's correct.
So if we have, and what they want to do is a full-service area. So conceivably, if we're not careful, we're going to have an overabundance of development in Moyoka because of that wastewater plant.
Well, only in the full service area.
Well, which is the service area of the wastewater plant.
Not necessarily. The wastewater plant is not necessarily. There are parcels that adjoin the force main that are not designated full service. Full service makes up about 14% of Moyoka Township.
But that could change down the road.
If you went through a land use amendment process, which would have to go through up to the Coastal Resources Commission.
But I'll go back to what Chairman O'Neill said, that wastewater plant was not built for residential development. It was built for
commercial development.
Commercial development, job creation. And this is, I feel we're going to lose the reins of the wagon.
All right. Anyone else?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to move to deny PB 1325.
Let me close the public hearing.
Sorry.
Okay, now.
Are
Public
you-
hearing is closed.
What's the
Yes,
may
sir.
I ask one question?
Yes,
Mr.
sir.
Chairman? What's the capacity of our wastewater treatment now? Or that might be a county manager question. With what we got on the books, I guess maybe, what's the capacity?
About 140,000 gallons is,
Left.
no, that's total.
Well,
Yeah, 40 at Moyoc Commons and 100,000.
with both of them combined, correct. With this subdivision, we are pushing the 80% limit capacity for that system.
Okay, thank you.
And before we hear a motion again, I'm going to go on record again. When the previous board started the wastewater system coming to Moyoc for commercial use, we realized that we needed to have some customers to keep it up and running, but it was not built so that lots become postage stamps in Moyoc. It was built primarily for commercial use, understanding there would be some residential use, but it was not built to promote
Residential growth.
the higher, way high density. So I just want that on the record. From my perspective, what everybody else thought it was is up to you, but that was my perspective.
I'll go with what
Mr.
I just said. We got to keep our hands on the reins here, and I feel like we got one rein dangling that on the ground, and we're trying to hang on with one.
All right, with that,
Mr. Chairman, since this tax amendment applies to the entire county, I move to deny PB 13 due to its inconsistency with the 2006 land use plan, and that the request is not reasonable and not in the public interest and does not address a demonstrated community need.
I second that.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, I believe, Mr. Woody, you said that if this amendment did not pass, then item D would not be heard tonight?
It cannot meet the ordinance requirements.
Okay, so the next agenda item is not going to be heard. Do we need to make a motion to remove it from the agenda, or what, Mr. Attorney? Or just move on?
I think just move on to the next item, and that you would be unable to act favorably upon the matter in any event.
Okay. So the Moyoc Crossings will not be heard tonight. That is it for Moyoc Crossings tonight. New business, consideration of license agreement between Currituck County and Farms and Timberland, Inc. for installation of water main across county property, and authorize county manager to execute license agreement. We'll wait just 1 minute for the room.
Thank you for your time.
Thank y'all for coming.
Thank you.
Oh, is it Mr. McCree?
Yes.
Mr. McCree, it is your turn tonight.
Mr. Chairman, as you may recall, there has been approved a subdivision on Baxter Lane adjacent to property owned by the county in Shingle Landing subdivision, the 20-acre parcel the county owns there. The developer of the proposed subdivision on Baxter Lane has approached the county requesting the ability to connect a water main to that subdivision through and across the county's property. County staff has met and considered the applicant's proposal and feels comfortable in recommending to you a license agreement to allow for that with certain conditions. First of all, the county staff would find that it would be in the best interest and benefit the county to allow for the developer to cross the county property with this water main, because it will give the county the opportunity to provide for a 10-inch water main and begin, I guess, the first leg of a loop for the water system in that particular area. Therefore, the county would require the developer then to pay $3,781 as a license fee to cross the county's property, and the county would then agree to pay the betterment cost for the difference between the cost of the 6-inch line, which the developer requires for their subdivision, and the 10-inch line, which the county wants for its purposes, which would total $47,000 that the county will pay to the developer. The license agreement provides that the county would pay $23,500 of that amount, one half of it at the time the license agreement is executed, followed by 25% more when 75% of the project is complete, and then the final 25% paid upon acceptance of the water line by the county. And of course, the developer will dedicate and convey that water line to the county for its ownership and maintenance going forward. With that, I'd be glad to answer any questions, and again, the county staff would commend this to you for approval.
Yes, sir.
Isn't this right across the street from Moyoc Crossing that we were just talking about?
Well, Shingle Landing is, of course, a subdivision.
Right, but what I'm saying is that the
It's
property that
adjacent.
we're talking about here is fairly close
Yes,
in proximity
yes, that's
to where
correct.
we were just considering.
That's correct.
The water line that's going to, what did they propose as far as a water line to go into Moyoc Crossing as far as size? Is it consistent with Moyoc Crossing and what we're talking about?
It will be.
Okay.
Mr. McCree, I have a question on that. With this variance going across the county property, would that hinder the interconnectivity that was proposed to also go through the county property?
It should not. The water main would run along the western boundary of the county's property.
Okay, but that wouldn't cause any interference with that
We don't think
interconnectivity
that it
that's
will.
proposed?
We do not think that it will.
Do we have a picture?
I don't have a picture, unless Mr. Woody can bring one up for us.
And he's got one there, I guess.
Pressure.
You're doing a better job than we can, so keep going.
Fucking interception.
Computer won't work. I got weather. Weather change.
It's 3,000, let's see.
It's too late.
Well, actually, the line will be 3,040 feet in length. And as Mr. Woody has indicated with the red line there, it will run from Moyoc Landing Drive across the county's property north to the developer's property on Baxter Lane.
So basically, what it's just going to do is loop
That ultimately, it will be a loop.
Good.
From a fire perspective, isn't that a good thing?
Great thing, sure.
And so we're just upsizing the line,
Which is another great thing.
which
Yes.
is for fire safety and protection.
Yes.
Okay.
Mr. Woody, could you show us on the map here where that interconnectivity proposal is?
Okay, I see.
The red line is the water line loop through the county's property, then the yellow highlight would be where the road connection would be.
To Baxter Lane?
No, there's no, the red line is the water connection between Moyoc Landing Drive and Baxter Lane.
Right, but where are the stub outs in Moyoc and Shingle Landing that we're supposed to connect to Baxter Lane?
To the south.
It's to the south of it?
Yes,
It's not, it doesn't go,
Now, the developer of Baxter Lane has provided a stub to the county property, but to get from Baxter Lane, from that developer's stub street to Moyoc Landing Drive would require some sort of improvement through the county's property. So it could be connected, but there's not a volunteer to make that improvement yet.
Is that where the connectivity is? Is that coming on the gravel part of Baxter Lane all the way at the end of Baxter Lane? Or
No,
is that coming?
it's on the paved part. It's
On the paved
about, what do you think, 3/4 of the way down Baxter Lane, maybe?
So it's coming right there before, like, the first new home? they
Before
put in?
yes.
Okay.
All right. Any further questions? Hearing none, we need a motion.
So moved.
We have a motion for approval, second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item is consent agenda.
Move for approval.
Mr. Chairman, I have one correction to that. The minutes of October 21st, when it stated that when we went into closed session, Mr. Petrie made the motion, and then he also seconded. That needs to be corrected. I seconded that motion. So in the consent agenda, that needs to be addressed in the minutes, and I've already spoken to Mary about that.
Okay, who made the motion for approval?
I made the motion, she seconded.
Okay, will you include that
Yes.
in the
Oh,
second?
no, I made the initial motion, I think, yeah.
Who just
okay,
made
yeah.
the motion to
Yeah,
approve the
gotcha.
consent agenda? Paul Martin did.
Yes.
To include that
To
correction.
include that correction.
And you
And I'll
second it.
second that.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Commissioners report, Mr. Idlet.
I'd just like to say, from what I understand, I was unable to attend the function at the fire department at Knights Island yesterday. Mrs. Gilbert, thank you so very much for attending, and I appreciate you representing the board and being there. From what I understand, it was a nice day, and the family of Chief Morrison was there, and they'd done the dedication, and from everything I understand, it went well. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Petrie.
Nothing tonight.
Ms. Gilbert.
I just want to update on the small area plan. We are making lots of progress. Our next meeting for the small area plan is the 19th. Is that correct, Ben? The committee's trying to decide because of the holiday and
Yes.
some meetings at the library, but it's either the 19th or 21st, so it will be publicized.
It will.
But I encourage more public input. We're getting to the point now that, we're forming lots of policies and guidance, so this is a crucial time. So if you want to have your input, please come to the public meetings and make your visions known.
Thank you. Mr. McCord.
I'd just like to give, I guess, I don't know what it was. The high school football team, Currituck football team, 8-2. Awesome game Saturday night because of the rain. Not a lot of people attended. They gave Currituck no chance to beat Northeastern. They beat them. It was probably one of the best high school football games I've been to in my life. Johnny Wheeler, with all the stuff his family's been through, he's done a great job with those kids. He should be proud, and Currituck should be proud of the team that they put out. It's a good group of kids. Public safety, like I said, the Sheriff's Department, the Animal Control on Halloween, which you have a lot of kids out, as well as when they got off the bus, they had a situation in Wedgewood Lakes, which I'm sure everybody saw on the news. It was on 310 and 13. Reference this might bring some laughs. Reference to somebody having some
Too much monkey
some
business.
some monkey business. Somebody having monkeys that got loose in Wedgewood. There was an individual hurt. Like I said, and it was on the news. He's gotten a lot of publicity, but the Sheriff's Department and Animal Control did a really, really good job because it was about 30 minutes from probably about 100 kids getting off the school buses. And I don't know if you got kids, you show me a 5 to 10-year-old that sees a monkey walking down the road that wouldn't go up to it and possibly could have got hurt. So, or trick-or-treaters. I mean, it's not a laughing matter, but, it kind of is. But like I said, they did a good job. They did a really, really good job.
They did.
The Animal Control. There was 20-some officers in there on Halloween. Like you said, it's easy. A kid could have got hurt or literally could have gotten killed. So, but that's my just props to those two. And the football team plays Friday night. They're 8-2. If they win, they're going to the playoffs. They play Hertford County. I challenge my fellow commissioners. I have to go. I have a kid on the team. But, like I said, it's a great time. $6. You can't get no better entertainment. So, support your county.
Thank you. Mr. Griggs.
Nothing tonight, thank you.
Mr. Martin.
Yes, I have one thing, and this is directed at the manager. Obamacare. We saw flash on the news today that their hospitals are declining to accept Obamacare. And I'm looking at the coverage that our county employees have. How are we going to be affected by the changes in this federal law and everything? And what's going to happen? when the health coverage goes up, then it looks like that perhaps the county is going to have to do something about it. And I'm just wondering, is that something that we can look at in the future? And if you could give us any insights or information that you might have on it.
The only impact that the current group health plan that we have associated with the Obamacare will be that we will need to extend it to coverage to people who work 30 hours or more. Right now, our personnel policy only provides health insurance coverage for people who work 40 hours or more. That's the only difference. I think it's maybe 2 people that fall in that category. But other than that, it will have no impact at all on our group health plan.
Thank you. That's good news, I know, for a lot of people who work for the county.
Is that it?
That's it.
I have 2 quick things, Mr. Manager. I've noticed I rode to Elizabeth City the end of last week, and I noticed on the shoulders of the road there's a lot of trash. And I know that sometimes the sheriff can get the inmates out there, but I noticed there's a set of box springs on the right-hand side of the road just before you get to Shawboro where they're cleaning where they're logging through there. And then right up here in Sligo, between here and Sligo, there's this big round, looks like a dog bed, been in the ditch for a year. And there's a lot of trash out there. If we could get the inmates, I know the sheriff will always get them out there if we request, so I'm requesting that we get, and maybe some of the volunteer organizations as well, but we do need to do a countywide cleanup on these main highways and the side roads as well, because it really is not a good impression when you're riding through and there's a box spring on the side of the road, and then there's that big balloon cushion thing up here, and it's been there over a year. I know it's been there a year, so if we could try to get that done, that'd be nice.
Where's the location of that one?
Right up here on Sligo,
on the right?
on the right-hand side,
Where the big ditches.
just past Purgatory.
Okay, I'll say something to
I will say this, I went by there the other day, and the state police had a guy in the ditch. So evidently, he was in there trying to clean it up because they had him surrounded. But
And then, last thing, I caught the tail end of a commercial this weekend, and it was using our traffic against us, advertising some golf resort to go to. Don't set in the traffic on the Outer Banks, come to our golf resort. And that message needs to go loud and clear to our representatives in Raleigh and DOT that now the traffic situation is being used against us and our tourism here, and it affects Dare County too. It's not just Currituck, but it affects Currituck and Dare County. And that's the some of y'all may have heard that commercial as well. So that's what I had. Mr. Manager?
Nothing, I thank you.
Okay, we need a motion to go in closed session.
Move to go in closed session pursuant to NCGS 143-318-11A, parentheses 4, to discuss matters relating to the location or expansion of industries or other businesses in Currituck County, including agreement on a tentative list of economic development incentives that might be or may be offered by Currituck County in negotiations.
I'll second that motion.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Thank you.